All right, you guys, so I have my sealed Collograph plate or block. So the matrix is, this piece of chipboard with the thinner cereal box chipboard glued to the surface. The cool thing about Collographs compared to a traditional woodcut is with the woodcut, you can only remove material. You're just cutting it away, and what you remove is pretty much gone forever. It's really hard to add wood back to a wood block or a lino cut. Even if you have the exact piece, getting it to glue in place perfectly is rather difficult. But with this Collograph plate, anything that I add to the surface that builds up, a surface or a level above what I have down here should print. So I could just use more Elmer's glue. I think in an earlier video I mentioned that I used to always use glue guns, like hot glue. So if you have that around, you want to try it, you can. The only thing to kind of be aware of is that, this chipboard is only so thick. The cereal board that I've added is only so thick. So I don't want it, whatever I add on top of this, I don't want it to be so much thicker than this chipboard that I've added that it makes it hard to print. And I can talk about that a little bit more when we go to actually print. But I can go, thicker or taller than what I have, but just not by too much. But as far as sealing the board, I should have kind of a uniform shine to it. Hopefully you guys on camera can see the light reflect off of the plastic kind of layer that's left by the Elmer's glue. So I'm going to go ahead and draw back into it. You might also notice that it's a little bit warped. So one trick is that I could paint glue on the other side with water and glue, and that should flatten it out a little bit, because it's the glue as it dries is contracting, and that's what causes it to bend. So painting it on the other side can cause it to kind of contract back and get a little bit flatter. Also, I could probably just leave it under the weight of books for a night, and that would maybe be enough to kind of flatten it out. Or I can kind of just like carefully stretch it on my own. If I were to leave it under books, which I might do after I add this layer, oh, there's a little bit of glue on there, this drawn layer of glue, which again is kind of a cool, unique thing to Collograph that I'm adding to this, plate or block material that will then print, which is very different, like I said, than woodcut. But also because the board's pliable, I can kind of like bend it back a little bit and end up with something that's a little bit flatter than it dried to by itself. So I've got it a little bit flatter. Honestly, as long as it's not too warped, if it's a little sort of waffly or wobbly, when you go to print, you're going to be pushing with pressure. The paper, you're going to be pushing the paper against the Collograph plate with pressure of a spoon or whatnot, and that should flatten it out while you're printing as well. Shouldn't impact the print too much. But anyway, let's get to drawing. So I've got my glue, and I'm going to add, I think, some sort of like textures in the background. So anywhere where I don't want this eventually, I can go back and just wipe it up with a sponge, like a damp sponge, or a rag, paper towels, something like that, baby wipes. So like where I went over onto the cue, if I don't want those lines to print on the cue, I can remove them. Or I could do stuff like where I add sort of texture, kind of build up maybe the wrinkles a little bit, some texture within those wrinkles a little bit. So it's, drawing with sort of strange materials like you're not used to drawing with glue, or at least I'm not. But I guess if you do a lot of glitter work, this wouldn't be too strange to you. And that might be something you experiment, actually, if you're one of those crafters that keeps glitter around. Maybe you glue some glitter down and see how that texture prints. It's kind of going to be a little bit of an experiment, right? And you might end up with something that's pretty cool. Some sort of face. Erased. All right. So like I've mentioned before, with this process, because we are drawing with, a medium like glue, or maybe you're using gesso or matte medium or gloss medium, you need to plan that material into your schedule, so to speak. You need to know that it's going to take you that long for the material to dry before you can print. So I need to let this sit probably for at least an hour. It's pretty hot and dry in my studio with the temperatures what they are right now. So it'll probably dry relatively quickly, but I can't go from this directly to printing. I need to let it dry a little bit before I'm ready to print. So that's what we'll do next.